I want to tell you, baby, what you mean to me, and all those good times we shared, all the love that we have for each other. So let your fire glow and your soul ignite, 'cause you are mine tonight. All right. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Baby. Give me some good loving. Yeah.
Oh yeah, give it to me. Now you should be able to hear me. Hi! Oh, is everybody ready to watch me squirm? Always. Yeah. Also, interesting fact, I was just trying to eat something quickly before we started. Yeah, nice chapter, right? Well, I mean, it was the last chapter of the book was 69, because there was 70 chapters was in the book, so I just thought I'd leave it up. Oh, Mimi wants to show you all her shirt. Oh. Read and smut, yeah! Yes, this is Mimosa. She's so cute. She's a Chihuahua wiener dog, so she is a whole baguette. She's very long. But yeah, it's got like an adorable, cutesy little Baphomet. It says, "See you in hell." Yes, Cheweenies are very special in that they either look like they're as old as time and wise forever, or they just look like baby. Hawk Girl also has a Cheweenie from our Discord. And she posted pictures of Jimmy recently that showed a very good back and forth. I like to think that Jimmy and Mimi would be friends if they met. I've got, where'd they go? I had them. Did I maybe go put them away? Oh no, they're there. Pen pals, yeah. I've got Sugar Snap Peas here, which are her favorite. So that's why she's up. She wants to be up here. But run away with your treat. Your Chug would not be friends with anyone. Okay. Where? But yeah, as I was saying, you're bringing her to Nashville? Oh! She's a bitch. That's okay. I still want to meet her. The stealthy snack. Let's run away with the healthy snack. Yeah, she loves sugar peas. Anything crunchy, really, she's into. Oh, I want to pet your puppy. Rocks for life, I do. But yeah, as I was saying, I was trying to eat something really quick before I went online because I'm just like running way behind today. And I think that the breakfast pogo that I microwaved may not have been microwaved all the way, and I hope I don't die. The end of it was just a little bit cold, but I already had eaten it, so I was already in, I'd committed. But yeah, it's that. I've got peas here, I've got cookies over there, and we're still gonna do a drinking game. I haven't given up on this. I on purpose grabbed the last little bit of tequila that we had because I'm committed to less than this. Because if I finish this, I'm dead. I'm also gonna mix it with lime juice so that I am not just shooting straight tequila. It cuts it a little bit. It's not so bad because while we're reading the smutty parts today, obviously they're not gonna say, I mean, they're gonna say made a lot still, of course they're gonna say it a lot. Especially chapter 55, they're gonna say it a lot. But I've decided that rather than going for that, definitely anytime they say nipple, because I hate that word, and I was thinking anytime they do something with like taste, because I hate when they talk about bat scents. I hate it. That's the part that's really difficult for me to read. I don't like reading it. LMAO nipple. Yeah. So I think nipple, and when they talk about the sense of taste, and we'll see how well that goes. The other thing I want to ask you guys is like, what order do you want to go with this? Because we have some options here. We can go all the way back to book 1. We can go back to Court of Thorns and Roses, and we can do the Tamlin scene. Because that's really the only good one. We could do the hallway thing if you want, but and I don't want to do any of the stuff with Rasan that she did without consent in book 1. I don't like that, and I'm not doing it. But we could also just focus on book 2. And if we focus on book 2, do you still want chapter 2 with Tamlin, or do we hate him so much that we don't want to do that? I am open to it, because I still think that there are ways to make it that he could come back and be okay. It's a pretty sexy scene. But I think it's up to y'all. Okay, ooh, you say let's do it? So do we want to do... Actually going to say that I'm not super into going back to Tamlin, but book 2 sounds fine, I think. Okay, cool. So let's not do book 1. Let's not do A Court of Thorns and Roses. We'll cut that out, because that was good. It was a good book, but it wasn't as horny, and we know that. Book 2 is way more horny. And then to make sure that we're doing a little bit of everything, we'll do the Tamlin scene at the start of book 1. Because it's horny and sexy and cute. That's fine. And then we'll move on. And we'll do all the Rasan stuff. We'll do Court of Nightmares, for sure. We'll do that night in the little inn when he just gets her off. And then, of course, we're doing chapter 55. If there are other scenes that I have not pulled, because those are the big ones. If there's anything else, y'all let me know and be like, go back and read this one. Go back and read this one. And then we can talk about it. But, of course, that's going to depend on, am I totally drunk? Do. Oh god, this is the song with the moaning in it! I just went with the sexy playlist. I'm just gonna let it go. And then when this one ends, I've got other ones lined up. Because this is the vibe. Yeah, this playlist is literally called Ooh Yeah. The one I have lined up afterwards is Wah Wah Seduction. I've also got Retro Neon Heat. Play this at my funeral. Oh. Okay. Oh god. Okay, I'm trying to find the part. Something other than spend his money. Okay. Okay, she's talking about, aren't they there? That's boring. Yes, when the pallbearers come out.
My heart is running for you. You like the sun come down over rainy clouds. You're all so good. You're all so good. I know I don't want you to change a damn thing.
Ayante's fucking hot, and they keep describing her as really hot and all this stuff I'm going past, but I'm not looking for her.
Heart is jumping for you. You like the sun come down over raining clouds.
Okay, I found it. I found it. Yeah, and instead of the casket in the front, I want a big spinning circle bed to lay on because then people could come pose for pics. Oh, beautiful. You have to make sure that like they embalm you in a seductive pose and everything, so you're like, you know, comfortable. Wawa Seduction sounds like a terrible Pennsylvania-themed porno. You could charge people to attend your funeral and pay since it's an art installation. Oh. And Danny took me right there, right in the Wawa. Oh, y'all. Okay, I found it. I found the part. There's so much other bullshit in that chapter, I don't want it. Okay, so here we go. Like I said before, it's when we say nipple, it's when we say anything to do with taste. Should we just, for the Tamlin thing, do the biting? Because Tamlin's the one that bites too much. Rasand, of course, occasionally will do like a nibble, but it's not the same amount of bite. We'll see how quickly it comes up. If it comes up very quickly, then okay, but... I was already in bed when Tamlin entered my room, silent as a stag through a wood. I lifted my head, going for the dagger I kept on the nightstand, but relaxed at the broad shoulders, at the hallway candlelight glinting on his tan skin and veiling his face in shadow. "You're awake," he murmured. I could hear the frown in his voice. He'd been in his study since dinner, sorting through the pile of paperwork Lucian had dumped on his desk. "I couldn't sleep," I said, watching his muscles shift as he moved to the bathing room to wash up. I'd been trying to sleep for an hour now, but each time I closed my eyes, my body locked up, the walls of the room pushed in. I'd gone so far as to throw open the windows, but it was going to be a long night. I lay back on the pillows, listening to the steady, efficient sounds of him preparing for bed. He kept his own quarters, deeming it vital for me to have my own space. But he slept in here every night. I'd yet to visit his bed, though I wondered if our wedding night would change that. I prayed I wouldn't thrash awake and vomit on the sheets when I didn't recognize where I was, when I didn't know if the darkness was permanent. Maybe that was why he hadn't pushed the issue yet. He emerged from the bathing room, slinging off his tunic and shirt, and I propped myself on my elbows to watch as he paused at the edge of the bed. My attention went right to the strong, clever fingers that unfastened his pants. Tamlin let out a low snarl of approval, and I bit my bottom lip as he removed his pants, along with his undergarments, revealing the proud, thick length of him. My mouth went dry, and I dragged my gaze up his muscled torso, over the panes of his chest, and then... Clever fingers. Oh yeah, they can open pants. They know how. "Come here," he growled, so roughly the words were barely discernible. I pushed back the blankets, revealing my already naked body, and he hissed. Proud thick length alert! Is that also a thing they say a lot? Do I have to add that to the list? Oh boy. I think my eyelash is swelling up. It's okay, it'll just look like I'm doing like a sultry eye. It's like... What kind of chimera is he? He is a shapeshifter. He does become a beast. So... I know, it's so hot. It is actually quite warm in my apartment right now for some reason. I think it's because the sun is finally out. And we're all windows in here. It's like a greenhouse. Yeah, Tamlin, that's his power because he's a High Lord. That's his power, is that he turns into like a big beast. That's this. The Spring Court's power is that he could shapeshift. So the first book was very Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, this is BF number 1. We don't stay with him, and we don't really like him, especially not anymore, but he's hot, though. And this scene is hot. That way he can fuck from far away! Yeah, sure. Okay. His features turned ravenous while I crawled across the bed and rose up on my knees. I took his face in my hands, the golden skin framed on either side by fingers of ivory and of swirling black, and kissed him. He held my gaze through the kiss, even as I pushed myself closer, biting back a small noise when he brushed against my stomach. From way downtown! That means his dick touched her stomach. But also, I'm picturing him just keeping his eyes open while she kisses him. Just staring right at her. That's disgusting, whoops, I know, that's disgusting. I can't believe you said that. You had a dude say that to you once? Ugh. My partner said that as a joke before. He never meant it. That's because he's a weirdo. Anyway, he was just brushing against her stomach. His calloused hands grazed my hips, my waist, then held me there as he lowered his head, seizing the kiss. Same guy and same night that said, I want to... Really? Yeah, I wouldn't hang out with him after. He's the worst. I hate that guy. Lowered his head, seizing the kiss. A brush of his tongue against the seam of my lips had me opening fully for him, and he swept in, claiming me, branding me. Sir, you can go now. I moaned then, tilting my head back to give him better access. His hands clamped on my waist, then moved. Yeah, it's real gross. His hands clamped my waist, then moved, one going to cup my rear, the other sliding between us. This moment when it was him and me and nothing between our bodies. His tongue scraped the roof of my mouth as he dragged a finger down the center of me, and I gasped, my back arching. Farah, he said against my lips, my name like a prayer more devout than any Ianthe had offered up to the cauldron on that dark solstice morning. His tongue swept my mouth again. In time to the finger that slipped inside of me. Ew. My hips undulated, demanding more, craving the fullness of him, and his growl reverberated in my chest as he added another finger. I moved on him. Lightning lashed through my veins, and my focus narrowed to his fingers, his mouth, his body on mine. His palm pushed against the bundle of nerves at the apex of my thighs, and I groaned his name as I shattered. My head thrown back, I gulped down night, cool air, and then I was being lowered to the bed, gently, delicately, lovingly. He stretched out above me, his head lowering to my breast, and all it took was one press of his teeth against my nipple before I was clawing at his back, before I hooked my legs around him, and he settled between them. This. I needed this. Do I need this? Probably not. I should have been more prepared. Go. Starting off strong, guys. Kill it! Kill it! Okay. Oh, that's hot. Oh, thank you, Rocks for Life. It's for Sherry. I still can't find our shot glass, so this is what I'm using. Innocent of sex and the single vampire. Best line of that book is he boinged into my hand. I have never read that. I don't know anything about it. And I love it. Yeah, it's very fancy. It's very, it works. Frasier would be appalled. Yeah, more boinging. Boing boing. He paused, arms trembling as he held himself over me. Please, I gasped out. He just brushed his lips against my jaw, my neck, my mouth. My neck, my back. Tamlin, I begged. I probably made that same joke the other time, too. Is the eyelash genuinely doing that right now? I can't tell if I just look crazy. Yeah, I look like this eye is partially closed. Oh. I'm just taking them off. Ugh. That's fine. I still look okay. I don't care. It looks better than me looking like I'm doing this. Please, I gasped out. He just brushed his lips against my jaw, my neck, my mouth. Most conservative first round of a strip game, yeah. Tamlin, I begged. He palmed my breast, his thumb flicking over my nipple. How weak is the dude? Is he tired from shape-shifting? He just climbed on top of her and he's trembling? Bring more in the arm department. I think he's trembling with desire, but yeah. Amy, what are you doing back there? Hey, don't do that. She's trying to go in the trash. I'm right here. I'm gonna let you go in the trash when I'm right here. You the brat. More like Tam Lame. I cried out and he buried himself in me with a mighty stroke. She's a detective. For a moment, I was nothing. No one. Then we were fused, two hearts beating as one, and I promised myself it always would be that way as he pulled out a few inches, the muscles of his back flexing beneath my hands, and then slammed back into me, again and again. I broke and broke against him as he moved, as he murmured my name and told me he loved me. And when that lightning once more filled my veins, my head, when I gasped out his name, his own release found him. I gripped him through each shuddering wave, savoring the weight of him, the feel of his skin, his strength. Always being like a chapter or two more? Yeah. Shows you can be so committed to somebody. For a while, only the rasp of our breathing filled the room. I frowned as he withdrew at last, but he didn't go far. He stretched out on his side, head propped on a fist, and traced idle circles on my stomach, along my breasts. I'm sorry about earlier. It's fine, I breathed. I understand. Not a lie, but not quite true. His fingers grazed lower, circling my belly button. You are everything to me, he said thickly. I need you to be alright, to know they can't get to you, can't hurt you anymore. I know. Those fingers drifted lower. I swallowed hard and said again, I know. I brushed his hair back from his face. But what about you? Who gets to keep you safe? Thickly. His mouth tightened. With his powers returned, he didn't need anyone to protect him, shield him. I could almost see invisible hackles raising. Not at me, but at the thought of what he'd been mere months ago. Prone to Amarantha's whims, his power barely a trickle compared to the cascade now coursing through him. He took a steadying breath and leaned to kiss my heart, right between my breasts. It was answer enough. Yes, they're having an extremely serious conversation while they're getting saucy. And it continues to get serious and it's dumb. Soon, he murmured, and those fingers traveled back to my waist. I almost groaned. Soon you'll be my wife, and it'll be fine. We'll leave all this behind us. I arched my back, urging his hand lower, and he chuckled roughly. I didn't quite hear myself speak as I focused on the fingers that obeyed my silent command. What will everyone call me then? He grazed my belly button as he leaned down, sucking the tip of my breast into his mouth. He didn't say it. Never mind. He said, and the rumble against my nipple made me writhe. Oh god, that's so much tequila. I can't do that. I can't. That's too much. I can't, guys. I'm sorry. I know there's a little lime in there, but whatever. Almost got away with it. Almost. Is everyone just going to call me Tamlin's wife? Do I get a title? He lifted his head long enough to look at me. Do you want a title? Gotta get Dottie drunk before we even leave Tamlin. We got so much to go. Like, we're 36 minutes into stream, y'all. Does she have a name? It's Feyre. She's the main character. I guess they're just asking. She's asking if, like, she'll be the lady or the consort or what she'll be called. She's asking what her royal title will be when she marries him. Before I could answer, he nipped at my breast, then licked over the small hurt. Licked as his fingers at last dipped between my legs. This is so horny. Talking about royal titles and shit. Yeah, that's horny. All right. I'm not counting any of that. No, I gasped out. But I don't want people cauldron boil me, his damned fingers. I don't know if I can handle them calling me High Lady. His fingers slid into me again, and he growled in approval at the wetness between my thighs. Both from me and him. Yep, he just loves touching his own cum. That's right. Call me High Lady. Yep, he just loves touching his own cum, this guy. He would. I'll be honest, giving me a title would definitely turn me on. I'd be excited by it. I don't know if it would get me sexually excited. But I do like power. They won't, he said against my skin, positioning himself over me again and sliding down my body, trailing kisses as he went. There is no such thing as a High Lady. Well, that's a boner killer. Fuck you. He gripped my thighs to spread my legs wide, lowering his mouth, and... What do you mean there's no such thing as a High Lady? The heat, his touch, all of it stopped. He looked up from between my legs, and I almost climaxed at the sight of it. But when he said what he'd implied, he kissed the inside of my thigh. Leg cramp. High Lords only take wives, consorts. There has never been a High Lady. But Lucian's mother, she's Lady of the Autumn Court, not High Lady. Just as you will be Lady of the Spring Court. They will address you as they address her. They will respect you as they respect her. He lowered his gaze back to what was inches away from his mouth. So, Lucians, I don't want to hear another male's name on your lips right now, he growled, and lowered his mouth to me. At the first stroke of his tongue, I stopped arguing. That's it. That happened. Okay. Announcing High Lord of the Spring Court and Feyre, High Fuck Buddy of the Spring Court. No, they married. Or would have been. Okay. So we read the Tamlin chapter. We dealt with it. And there were lots of little cute moments between Feyre and Rhysand that like get steamy, but never really go all the way. So I think we're gonna skip trying to hunt those down, since I didn't really do my homework. And we're just gonna go right to the Court of Nightmares if everybody is down with that. Yes, some horny public action conversation. Do we think Rhysand knew about that conversation? Probably. And I think she even brought it up with him at one point. I seem to remember. He knows, like, everything that's important, really. That was the scene with the queens. Okay. Rhysand knows everything that's important. Okay, so chapter 42 is the chapter. There's kind of this the thing where they talk about the wings a lot is in this chapter, and then they get attacked and then they go to the night courts. I think maybe I'll read the bit where they talk about the wing thing, and then we'll skip the bit where they get attacked and we'll go to the next bit. Just because people seem to like the wing thing. It's become a topic of conversation. Everybody's like, oh, you need to get, your partner needs to get wings. Poor Jeff. Yeah, happy Dog Mother's Day! See, I am a dog mom, and my dog was a mom. And so we've been saying Happy Mother's Day to each other. The wing thing is the ye old version of the thong song, yes. Hello, Carla. All you have missed so far, by the way, is we read the Tamlin scene from the beginning of the book. So you haven't missed any hot Rhysand action. I was not frightened. Not of the role that Rhys had asked me to play today. Not of the roaring wind as we winnowed into a familiar snow-capped mountain range, refusing to yield to spring's awakening kiss. Not of the punishing drops as Rhys flew us between the peaks and valleys, swift and sleek. Cassian and Asriel flanked us. More would meet us at the gates to the mountain base. Right, Rock's Relief, it's so cute that Mimi is a mama. I've never seen her puppies because she had them before I adopted her. But I do have one photo of her when she was, like, really pregnant. which I actually think is really adorable because she's all chunky and fat and big and round. She's still got nipples. And like she had the puppies like really soon before she came here for me to foster her. So like, but according to the shelter, she, you know, they all got adopted to good homes because they were all born in the shelter and everything. But she'd probably had many puppies before that, and they don't know like which dogs they'd rescued along with her were her puppies and which ones were just like other dogs. So many Chihuahuas. There were over 100 Chihuahua mixes on the property where they rescued her from. Let me see if I can find the picture actually while I'm talking about it because it's so freaking cute. And pregnant Mimi. Here, I have it on Instagram. Yes, she is a mama to many pups. Mimosa mama. Oh, with that guy that became a Chihuahua fosterer. Yeah. Yeah, Maserati! Cozy Girl Realness, listening to Smut. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna minimize this. I'm gonna show you guys. This is Mimi's Instagram. So this is the picture of her when she was a mama. You see she's got a big old belly there. And you could tell she was younger because, like, she's not as white in the face and stuff. It was in 2019. And then this is just her Instagram, just her being cute. After we adopted her. That's my partner, by the way. Getting slept on by a pup. Yeah, she adorable. All right, I'm getting itchy nose again, y'all. I think it's all the smut. I think it's just so steamy in here. Ooh. Lost an eyelash. My nose is itchy. I'm getting all sweaty. Freaking tequila, man. Okay. Reese's face was drawn, his shoulders tense as I gripped them. My nose! Fucking spring. I knew what to expect, but even after he told me what he needed me to do, even after I had agreed, he'd been aloof, haunted, worried for me, I realized. And just because of that worry, just to get that tightness off his face, even for those few minutes before we faced his unholy realm beneath that mountain, I said over the wind, Carla, we're not taking a shot for every mate. We are taking a shot for every nipple. And every time that they talk about the taste of something. Yeah, just the taste. So anytime it's like, oh, the taste of him in my mouth. I was gonna consider anytime it was like tongue stuff, but if that was the case, I think I would be dead. Nipple is bad enough. Honestly, because like in that Tamlin scene alone, I think I had to do like 7 shots. And they are mini shots, and I'm putting lime juice in them to cut it a bit because I don't want to die. Yes, as Bimini says, the nipples are the eyes of the face. Amran and Moore told me that the span of an Illyrian male's wings says a lot about the size of other parts. His eyes shot to mine, then to pine tree-coated slopes down. Below. See him blurring. Did they now? I shrugged in his arms, trying not to think about the naked body that night all those weeks ago. You remember when she saw him nude? Though I hadn't glimpsed much. They also said Azrael's wings are the biggest. Mischief danced in those violet eyes, washing away the cold distance, the strain. The Spymaster was a black blur against the pale blue sky. When we return home, let's get out the measuring stick, shall we? I pinched the rock-hard muscle of his forearm. Reese flashed me a wicked grin before he tilted down. Right, whoops, I know, yeah. Azrael is actually great. And I love when he comes up in the book, because I do a French accent for him, and it is very fun. Azrael, he is a French Illyrian. And because he's a spymaster, I like to think of him as though he might be Poirot, but without the mustache and very sexy. Mountains and snow and trees and sun and utter freefall through wisps of clouds. A breathless scream came out of me as we plummeted. Throwing my arms around his neck was instinct. His low laugh tickled my nape. My nape. You're willing to brave my brand of darkness and put up one of your own. Willing to go to a watery grave and take on the Weaver. But a little freefall makes you scream? I'll leave you to rot the next time you have a nightmare, I hissed, my eyes still shut and body locked as he snapped out his wings to ease us into a steady glide. No, you won't, he crooned. You like seeing me naked too much. Prick. His laugh rumbled against me, eyes closed, the wind roaring like a wild animal. I adjusted my position, gripping him tighter. My knuckles brushed one of his wings, smooth and cool like silk, but hard as stone with it stretched taut. Fascinating. I blindly reached again and dared to run a fingertip along some inner edge. Rasan shuddered, a soft groan slipping past my ear. That, he said tightly, is very sensitive. I snatched my finger back, pulling away far enough to see his face. With the wind, I had to squint, and my braided hair ripped this way and that. But he was entirely focused on the mountains around us. Does it tickle? Yes. Very even funnier if you play swing with nipple. I always think of... Never mind. He flicked his gaze to me, then to the snow and pine that went on forever. It feels like this, he said, and leaned in so close that his lips brushed the shell of my ear as he sent a gentle breath into it. My back arched on instinct, my chin tipping up at the caress of that breath. Oh, I managed to say. I felt him smile against my ear and pull away. If you want an Illyrian male's attention, you'd be better off grabbing him by the balls. We're trained to protect our wings at all costs. Some males attack first, ask questions later. If their wings are touched without invitation. And during sex? The question blurted out. She just couldn't help it. She had to know. Reese's face was nothing but feline amusement as he monitored the mountains. During sex, an Illyrian male can find completion just by having someone touch his wings in the right spot. My blood thrummed. Dangerous territory, more lethal than the drop below. Have you found that to be true? Yes, yeah, Carla. No, that we're rereading the sexy stuff. So we read this weeks ago. Yeah, we're going back and we're rereading all the smutty bits because Jackie's going to come do a talk back about the book with us on Wednesday, and I didn't want to start the new book until we've had that talk. So we're doing a fun read the smut again day. Read the smut. Watch me itch my nose. You know, just having a chill mom's day. Watch me eat green peas and shoot vodka, you know. Okay. Have you found that to be true? His eyes stripped me bare. I've never allowed anyone to see or touch my wings during sex. It makes you vulnerable in a way that I'm not comfortable with. Too bad, I said, staring up too casually toward the mighty mountain that now appeared on the horizon. Towering over the others, and capped, I noted, with that glimmering palace of moonstone. Why? He asked warily. I shrugged, fighting the upward tugging of my lips. Because I bet you could get into some very interesting positions with those wings. Reese loosed a barking laugh, and his nose grazed my ear. I felt him open his mouth to whisper something, but... So he was gonna say something there, and then they get attacked, and I don't care anymore. I want to have sex in the sky! Don't you want to join the Mile High Club? Here we go. Okay, now we're getting into the night court, guys. It's intense. And after this, we've got the inn, and then we've got Chapter 55 to cap it off. The hewn city, a place of such terrible beauty that it was an effort to keep the wonder and dread off my face. Music was already playing somewhere, and our hosts still did not come out to greet us. The people we passed, only high fae, were clothed in finery, their faces deathly pale and cold. Not one stopped us. Not one smiled or bowed. Moore ignored them all. Neither of us had said one word. Reese had told me not to, that the walls had ears here. Moore led me down the avenue toward another set of stone gates, thrown open at the base of what looked to be a castle within the mountain, the official seat of the High Lord of the Night Court. Great, scaled black beasts were carved into those gates, all coiled together in a nest of claws and fangs, sleeping and fighting, some locked in an endless cycle of devouring each other. Between them flowed vines of jasmine and moonflowers. I could have sworn the beast seemed to writhe in the silvery glow of the bobbing phalites throughout the mountain. We love some wings. The Gates of Eternity. That's what I'd call the painting that flickered in my mind. More continued through them, a flash of color and life in this strange, cold place. She wore deepest red, the gossamer and gauze of her sleeveless gown clinging to her breasts and hips, while carefully placed shafts left much of her stomach and back exposed. Her hair was down in rippling waves, and cuffs of solid gold glinted around her wrists. A queen who bowed to no one. I will bow to no one! A queen who had faced them all down and triumphed. A queen who owned her body, her life, her destiny, and never apologized for it. My clothes, which she had taken a moment in the pine wood to shift me into, were of a similar ilk, nearly identical to those I had been forced to wear under the mountain. 2 shafts of fabric that hardly covered my breasts flowed to below my navel, where a belt across my hips joined them into one long shaft that draped between my legs and barely covered my backside. It's a bold choice to use the word shafts on clothing and not save it for later. But unlike the chiffon and bright colors I had worn then, this one was fashioned of black, glittering fabric that sparkled with every swish of my hips. Rich shafts, none the richer. Oh my god, that's funny. Moore had fashioned my hair into a crown atop my head, right behind the black diadem that had been set before it, accented with flecks of diamond that made it glisten like the night sky. She darkened and lengthened my eyelashes, sweeping out an elegant, vicious line of kohl at the outer corner of each. My lips she'd painted blood red. Into the castle beneath the mountain we strode. There were more people here, milling about the endless halls, watching our every breath. Some looked like Moore with their gold hair and beautiful faces. They even hissed at her. Moore smirked at them. Part of me wished she'd rip their throats out instead. We at last came to a throne room of polished ebony. More of the serpents from the front gates were carved here, this time wrapped around the countless columns supporting the onyx ceiling. It was so high up that gloom hid its finer details, but I knew more had been carved there, too. Great beasts to monitor the manipulations and scheming within this room. The throne itself had been fashioned out of a few of them, a head snaking around either side of the back, as if they watched over the High Lord's shoulder. A crowd had gathered, and for a moment I was again in Amarantha's throne room. So similar was the atmosphere. The malice. So similar was the dais at the other end. A golden-haired, beautiful man stepped into our path toward that ebony throne, and Moore smoothly halted. I knew he was her father without him saying a word. He was clothed in black, a silver circlet atop his head. His brown eyes were like old soil, and he said to her, "Where is he?" I completely forget what this guy sounds like, and I don't give a fuck. No greeting, no formality. He ignored me wholly. Moore shrugged. This talk is perfect for daddy excitement. Moore shrugged. He arrives when he wishes to. She continued on. Her father looked at me then, and I willed my face into a mask like hers, disinterested, aloof. Her father surveyed my face, my body, and where I thought he'd sneer and ogle, there was nothing. No emotion, just heartless cold. I followed more before disgust wrecked my own icy mask. Banquet tables against the black walls were covered with fat, succulent fruits, and wreaths of golden bread interrupted with roast meats, kegs of cider and ale, and pies and tarts and little cakes of every size and variety. It might have made my mouth water, were it not for the high fae and their finery. Were it not for the fact that no one had touched the food, the power and wealth lying in the power and wealth lying in letting it go to waste. More went right up to the obsidian dais, and I halted at the foot of the steps as she took up a place beside the throne and said to the crowd in a voice that was clear and cruel and cunning, "You want to fuck this banquet table instead? Roast meat and pie? I know, right? Like, I would be so hungry, I'd be right up in there. I wouldn't care. I'd be eating immediately. Right to the snacks! Your High Lord Your High Lord approaches. He is in a foul mood, so I suggest being on your best behavior, unless you wish to be the evening entertainment." And before the crowd could begin murmuring, I felt it. Felt him. The very rock beneath my feet seemed to tremble, a pulsing, steady beat. His footsteps, as if the mountain shuddered at each touch. Everyone in that room went still as death, as if petrified that their very breathing would draw the attention of the predator now strolling toward us. Mora's shoulders were back, her chin high, feral, wanton pride at her master's arrival. Remembering my role, I kept my own chin lowered, watching beneath my brows. First, Cassian and Azrael appeared in the doorway, the High Lords General and Shadow Singer, and the most powerful Illyrians in history. They were not the males I had come to know. Clad in battle black that hugged their muscled forms, their armor was intricate, scaled, their shoulders impossibly broader, their face was a portrait of unfeeling brutality. They reminded me somehow of the ebony beasts carved into the pillars they passed. More siphons, I realized, glimmered in addition to the ones atop each of their hands. A siphon in the center of their chest, one on either shoulder, one on either knee. For a moment, my knees quaked, and I understood what the camp lords had feared in them. If one siphon was what most Illyrians needed to handle their killing power, Cassian and Azrael had 7 each. 7. I do want to point this out that, by the way, just because you wear 7 doesn't mean you need 7. Okay? Maybe they're compensating. They're just trying to threaten people. Anyway. The courtiers had the good sense to back away a step as Cassian and Azrael strolled through the crowd, toward the dais. Their wings gleamed, the talons at the apex sharp enough to pierce air, like they'd honed them. Cassian's focus had gone right to Mor, Azrael indulging in all of a glance before scanning the people around them. Most shirked from the spymaster's eyes, though they trembled as they beheld Truth Teller at his side, the Illyrian blade peeking above his left shoulder. Azrael, his face a mask of beautiful death, silently promised them all endless, unyielding torment, even the shadows shuddering in his wake. Right? The wings aren't enough? 7 siphons plus big-ass wings equals fucked completely dead. I knew why, knew for whom he'd gladly do it. They had tried to sell a 17-year-old girl into marriage with a sadist, and then brutalized her in ways I wouldn't let myself consider. And these people now lived in utter terror of the 3 companions who stood at the dais. Good. They should be afraid of them. Afraid of me. And then, Rhysand appeared. He had released the damper on his power, and who he was. His power filled the throne room, the castle, the mountain, the world. It had no end and no beginning. No wings, no weapons, no sign of the warrior. Nothing but the elegant, cruel, high lord the world believed him to be. His hands were in his pockets, of course. His black tunic seeming to gobble up the light. And on his head sat a crown of stars. No sign of the male who had been drinking on the roof. No sign of the fallen prince kneeling on his bed. The full impact of him threatened to sweep me away. Here was the most powerful High Lord ever born. The face of dreams and nightmares. Reese's eyes met mine briefly from across the room as he strolled between the pillars to the throne that was his by blood and sacrifice and might. My own blood sang at the power that thrummed from him, at the sheer beauty of him. More stepped off the dais, dropping to one knee in a smooth bow. Cassian and Azrael followed suit. So did everyone in that room, including me. The ebony floor was so polished I could see my red-painted lips in it, see my own expressionless face. The room was so silent I could hear each of Reese's footsteps toward us. "Well, well," he said to no one in particular. "Looks like you're all on time for once." Raising his head as he continued kneeling, Cassian gave Reese a half grin, the High Lord's commander incarnate, eager to do his bloodletting. Reese's boots stopped in my line of sight. His fingers were icy on my chin as he lifted my face. The entire room, still on the floor, watched. But this was the role he needed me to play, to be a distraction and novelty. Reese's lips curved upward. "Welcome to my home, Feyre Cursebreaker." I lowered my eyes, my coal-thick lashes tickling my cheek. He clicked his tongue, his grip on my chin tightening. Everyone noticed the push of his fingers, the predatory angle of his head as he said, "Come with me." A tug on my chin and I rose to my feet. Reese dragged his eyes over me, and I wondered if it wasn't entirely for show as they glazed a bit. He led me the few steps onto the dais, to the throne. "Never go to a secondary location!" He sat, smiling faintly at his monstrous court. He owned every inch of the throne. These people. And with a tug on my waist, he perched me on his lap. The High Lord's whore, who I'd become under the mountain, who the world expected me to be. The dangerous new pet that Moore's father would now seek to feel out. Reese's hand slid along my bare waist, the other running down my exposed thigh. Cold. His hands were so cold I almost yelped. He must have felt the slight flinch. A heartbeat later, his hands had warmed. His thumb, curving around the inside of my thigh, gave a slow, long stroke as if to say, "Sorry." Reese indeed leaned in to bring his mouth near my ear, well aware his subjects had not yet risen from the floor, as if they had once done so before they were bidden long ago and had learned the consequences. Son whispered to me, his other hand now stroking the bare skin of my ribs in lazy, indolent circles. "Try not to let it go to your head." I know they could all hear it. So did he. I stared at their bowed heads, my heart hammering, but said with midnight smoothness, "What?" Reese's breath caressed my ear. The twin to the breath he'd brushed against it merely an hour ago in the skies.
Every male in here is contemplating what they'd be willing to give up in order to get that pretty red mouth of yours on them.
I waited for the blush, the shyness to creep in. But I was beautiful. I was strong. I had survived, triumphed, as more had survived in this horrible poisoned house. So I smiled a bit, the first smile of my new mask. Let them see that pretty red mouth and my white, straight teeth. His hand slid higher up my thigh, the proprietary touch of a male who knew he owned somebody, body and soul. He'd apologized in advance for this game, these roles we'd have to play. But I leaned into that touch, leaned back into his hard, warm body. I was pressed so closely against him that I could feel the deep rumble of his voice as he at last said to his court,
Rise.
As one, they did. I smirked at some of them, gloriously bored and infinitely amused. Reese brushed a knuckle along the inside of my knee, and every nerve in my body narrowed to that touch.
Go play,
he said to them all. They obeyed, the crowd dispersing, music striking up from a distant corner.
Here,
Reese said, his voice cutting through the room like lightning on a stormy night. It was all he needed to summon Moore's father to the foot of the dais. Kier bowed again, his face lined with icy resentment as he took in Reese, then me, glancing once at Moore and the Illyrians. Cassian gave Kier a slow nod that told him he remembered and would never forget what the steward of the hewn city had done to his own daughter. But it was from Azrael that Kier cringed, from the sight of Truth Teller. One day, I realized, Azrael would use that blade on Moore's father and take a long, long while to carve him up.
Report,
Reese said, stroking a knuckle down my ribs. He gave a dismissive nod to Cassian, Moore, and Azrael, and the trio faded away into the crowd. Within a heartbeat, Azrael had vanished into shadows and was gone. Kier didn't even turn. Before Reese, Kier was nothing more than a sullen child. Yet I knew Moore's father was older. Far older. The steward clung to power, it seemed. Reese was power.
Greetings, my lord,
Kier said, his deep voice polished smooth.
And greetings to your guest.
Reese's hand flattened on my thigh as he angled his head to look at me.
She is lovely, isn't she?
Indeed,
Kier said, lowering his eyes.
There is little to report, my lord. All has been quiet since your last visit.
No one for me to punish.
A cat playing with his food.
Unless you'd like for me to select someone here. No, my lord.
Reese clicked his tongue.
Pity.
He again surveyed me, then leaned to tug my earlobe with his teeth. And damn me to hell, but I leaned farther back as his teeth pressed down at the same moment his thumb drifted high on the side of my thigh, sweeping across sensitive skin in a long, luxurious touch. My body went loose and tight, and my breathing? Cauldron damn me again, the scent of him, the citrus and the sea, the power roiling off him. My breathing hitched a bit. I knew he noticed, knew he felt that shift in me. His fingers stilled on my leg. Kier began mentioning people I didn't know in the court, bland reports on marriages and alliances, blood feuds, and Reese let him talk. His thumbs stroked again, this time joined with his pointer finger. A dull roaring was filling my ears, drowning out everything but that touch on the inside of my leg. The music was throbbing, ancient, wild, and people ground against each other to it. His eyes on the steward, Reese made vague nods every now and then.
while his fingers continued their slow, steady stroking on my thighs, rising higher with every pass. People were watching, even as they drank and ate, even as some danced in small circles. People were watching. I was sitting in his lap, his own personal plaything, his every touch visible to them. And yet it might as well have been only the two of us. Kier listed the expenses and costs of running the court, and Reese gave another vague nod. This time, his nose brushed the spot between my neck and shoulder, followed by a passing graze of his mouth. My breasts tightened, becoming full and heavy, aching like what was now pooling in my core. Heat filled my face, my blood. Bakir said at last, as if his own self-control slipped the leash.
I had heard the rumors and I didn't quite believe them.
His gaze settled on me, on my breasts, peeked through the folds of my dress. Of my legs, spread wider than they'd been minutes before. Reese's hand in dangerous territory.
But it seems true. Tamlin's pet is now owned by another master.
You should see how I make her beg, Reese murmured, nudging my neck with his nose.
Right? I know, Carly. Yeah, no, they haven't said the word. They haven't said it. They just keep saying breasts. They're trying to save me.
Kier clasped his hands behind his back.
I assume you brought her to make a statement?
You know everything I do is a statement.
Of course, it seems you enjoy putting in cobwebs and crowns.
Reese's hand paused. Ooh, ooh. And I said,
My God, Reginald, look over there. He took her whole nose square. Took her whole nose square at this banquet.
Reese's hand paused, and I sat straighter at the tone, the disgust. And I said to Kier in a voice that belonged to another woman, "Perhaps I'll put a leash on you." Reese's approval tapped against my mental shield, the hand at my ribs now making lazy circles. She does enjoy playing, he mused onto my shoulder. He jerked his chin toward the steward. Get her some wine. Pure command. No politeness. Kier stiffened but strode off. Reese didn't dare break from his mask, but the light kiss he pressed beneath my ear told me enough. Apology and gratitude, and more apologies. He didn't like this any more than I did, and yet to get what we needed, to buy Azrael time, he'd do it. And so would I. I wondered then, with his hands beneath my breasts and between my legs, what Reese wouldn't give of himself. Wondered if perhaps the arrogance and swagger, if they masked a male who perhaps thought he wasn't worth very much at all. A new song began, like dripping honey, and edged into a swift-moving wind, punctuated with driving, relentless drums.
How many hands does this guy have?
I twisted, studying his face. There was nothing warm in his eyes. Nothing of the friend I'd made. I opened my shield enough to let him in. What? His voice floated into my mind. I reached down the bond between us, caressing that wall of ebony adamant. A small sliver cracked, just for me, and I said into it, You are good, Reese. You are kind. This mask does not scare me. I see you beneath it. His hands tightened on me. His eyes held mine as he leaned forward to brush his mouth against my cheek. It was answer enough, and an unleashing. I leaned a bit more against him, my legs widening ever so slightly. "Why'd you stop?" I said into his mind, into him. A near silent growl reverberated against me. He stroked my ribs again, in time to the beat of the music, his thumb rising nearly high enough to graze the underside of my breasts. I let my head drop back against his shoulder. I let go of the part of me that heard their words. Whore, whore, whore. Let go of the part that said those words alongside them. Traitor, liar, whore. And I just became. I became the music and the drums and the wild, dark thing in the High Lord's arms. His eyes were wholly glazed and not with power or rage. Something red-hot and edged with glittering darkness exploded in my mind. I dragged a hand down his thigh, feeling the hidden warrior's strength there. Dragged it back up again in a long idle stroke, needing to touch him, feel him. I was going to catch fire and burn. I was going to start burning right here. "Easy," he said with wicked amusement through that open sliver in my shield. "If you become a living candle, poor Care will throw a hissy fit, and then you'd ruin the party for everyone."
That means penis.
Because the fire would let them all know I wasn't normal, and no doubt Kier would inform his almost allies in the Autumn Court. Or one of those other monsters would. Reese shifted his hips, rubbing against me with enough pressure that for a second I didn't care about Kier or the Autumn Court, or what Asriel might be doing right now to steal the orb. I had been so cold, so lonely for so long, and my body cried out at the contact, at the joy of being touched and held and alive. The hand that had been on my waist slid across my abdomen, hooking into the low-slung belt there. I rested my head between his shoulder and neck, staring at the crowd as they stared at me, savoring every place where Reese and I connected and wanting more. At last, when my body had begun to boil, when Reese skimmed the underside of my breast with his knuckle, I looked to where I knew Kier was standing, watching us, my wine forgotten in his hand. We both did. The steward was staring unabashedly as he leaned against the wall, unsure whether to interrupt, half terrified too. We were his distraction. We were the sleight of hand, while Az stole the orb. I knew Reese was still holding Kier's gaze as the tip of his tongue slid up my neck. I arched my back, eyes heavy-lidded, breathing uneven. I'd burn and burn and burn. I think he's so disgusted that he might have given me the orb just to get me out of here.
Oxford life.
Reese said in my mind, the other hand drifting dangerously south. There was such a growing ache there, and I wore nothing beneath that. Nothing beneath that would conceal the damning evidence if he slid his hand a fraction higher.
We're so lonely.
You and I put on a good show, I said back. The person who said that, husky and sultry, I'd never heard that voice come out of me before, even in my mind. His hand slid to my upper thigh, fingers curving in. I ground against him, trying to shift those hands away from what he learned, to find him hard against my backside. Every thought eddied from my head. Only a thrill of power remained as I writhed along that impressive length.
Reese let out a low, rough laugh. Taylor's like, this guy and I flirt all the time. I live with him. We're currently enthusiastically rubbing up on each other, but I don't know if he's into me. Right? Like, you didn't know? But she just realizes his dick is hard, so she's real excited about that. Kier just watched and watched and watched, rigid, horrified, stuck here until Reese released him and not thinking twice about why or where the spymaster had gone. So I turned around again, meeting Rasan's now blazing eyes, and then licked up the column of his throat. Wind and sea and citrus and sweat. It almost undid me. I will count it, but only like a little bit. She was describing what he tasted like. So. But like, it's like a mini one. Because I know I'm gonna get hit later. I'm gonna get hit later. I know it. I just know it. Because you have to remember I have a bad memory, so I don't remember what comes up later. I faced forward, and Reese dragged his mouth along the back of my neck, right over my spine. Just as I shifted against the hardness pushing into me. Insistent and dominating, precisely as his hand slid a bit too high on my inner thigh. I felt the predatory focus go right to the slickness he felt there. Proof of my traitorous body. His arms tightened around me, and my face burned, perhaps a bit from shame, but Reese sensed my focus. My fire slid. "It's fine," he said, but that mental voice sounded breathless. "It means nothing. It's just your body reacting." "Because you're so irresistible?" My attempt to deflect sounded strained, even in my mind. But he laughed, probably for my benefit. We danced around and teased and taunted each other for months, and maybe it was my body's reaction. Maybe it was his body's reaction. But the taste of him threatened to destroy me, consume me, and... See, I told you, it was gonna come up. It's gonna come up. Ugh. Another male. I'd had another male's hands all over me when Tamlin and I were barely... Fighting my nausea, I pasted a sleepy, lust-fogged smile on my face. Right as Azrael returned and gave Reese a subtle nod, he'd gotten the orb. Moore slid up to the spymaster, running a proprietary hand over his shoulders, his chest, as she circled to look into his face. As a scar-mottled hand wrapped around her bare waist, squeezing once, the confirmation she also needed. She offered him a little grin that would no doubt spread rumors, and sauntered into the crowd again. Dazzling, distracting, leaving them thinking Az had been here the whole time, leaving them pondering if she'd extended Azrael an invitation to her bed. Azrael just stared after Moore, distant and bored. I wondered if he was as much of a mess inside as I was.
Reese crooked a finger to Kier, who, scowling a bit in his daughter's direction, stumbled forward with my wine. He'd barely reached the dais before Reese's power took it from him, floating the goblet to us. Reese set it on the ground beside the throne, a stupid task he'd thought up for the steward to remind him of his powerlessness, that this throne was not his. This single scene has said predatory more times than a David Attenborough talk. Yeah, maybe I should have used that as the drinking game, but oof. Should I test it for poison? Reese drawled, even as he said into my mind, Cassian's waiting, go. Reese had the same sex-addled expression on his perfect face, but his eyes? I couldn't read the shadows in his eyes. Maybe for all our teasing, after Amarantha, he didn't want to be touched by a woman like that. Didn't even enjoy being wanted like that. Oof. So that's the end of the sexy part. So I think we can stop. And we will move on to some cozy girl vibes. Yeah, the one in the inn is fun. I just gotta find it again. Okay, so it's not that chapter because that's the one where he all hurt. I think this is it. Ah, yes. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit here where they're describing the inn because it's dirty and it's gross and they hate it. And there's only one room and there's only one bed in the room. And it's cold. If you can't risk using magic, then we'll have to warm each other, I said, and instantly regretted it. Body heat, I clarified, and just to wipe that look off his face, I added, my sisters and I had to share a bed. I'm used to it. I'll try to keep my hands to myself. My mouth went a bit dry. I'm hungry. He stopped smiling at that. I'll go down and get us food while you change. I lifted a brow. He said, remarkable as my own abilities are to blend in, my face is recognizable. I'd rather not be down there long enough to be noticed. Indeed, he fished a cloak from his pack and slid it on, the panels fitting over his wings, which he wouldn't risk vanishing again. He'd used power earlier in the day, small enough, he said, that it might not be noticed. We wouldn't be returning to that part of the forest anytime soon. He tugged on the hood, and I savored the shadows and menace and wings. Death on swift wings. That's what I'd call the painting. He said softly, I love it when you look at me like that. The purr in his voice heated my blood. Like what? Like my power isn't something to run from? Like you see me? And to a male who had grown up knowing he was the most powerful High Lord in Prithian's history, that he could shred minds if he wasn't careful? That he was alone? Alone in his power? In his burden? But that fear was his mightiest weapon against the threats to his people? I'd hit home when he'd fought after the Court of Nightmares. I was afraid of you at first. His white teeth flashed in the shadows of his hood. No, you weren't. Nervous, maybe, but never afraid. I've felt the genuine terror of enough people to know the difference. Maybe that's why I couldn't keep away. When? Before I could ask, he walked downstairs, shutting the door behind him. My half-frozen clothes were a misery to peel off as they clung to my rain-swollen skin, and I knocked into the slanted ceiling nearby walls and slammed my knee into the brass bedpost as I changed. The room was so cold I had to get undressed in segments, replacing a freezing shirt for a dry one. Pants for fleece-lined leggings. Sodden socks for thick hand-knit lovelies that went up to my calves. Hand-knit lovelies that go up to your calves! Ugh. Gonna change into my cozy clothes after this. When I'd tucked myself into an oversized sweater that smelled faintly of grease, I sat cross-legged on the bed and waited. The bed wasn't small, but certainly not large enough for me to pretend I wouldn't be sleeping next to him, especially with the wings. The rain tinkled on the roof mere inches away, a steady beat to the thoughts that now pulsed in my head. The cauldron knew what Lucian was reporting to Tamlin, likely at this very moment, if not hours ago. I'd sent that note to Tamlin, and he'd chosen to ignore it. Just as he'd ignored or rejected nearly all of my requests, acted out of his deluded sense of what he believed was right for my well-being and safety. And Lucian had been prepared to take me against my will. Fey males were territorial, dominant, arrogant, but the ones in the Spring Court? Something had festered in their training. Because I knew, deep in my bones, that Cassian might push and test my limits, but the moment I said no, he'd back off. And I knew that if I had been wasting away and Rhys had done nothing to stop it, Cassian or Asriel would have pulled me out. They would have taken me somewhere, wherever I needed to be, and dealt with Rhys later. But Rhys would never have not seen what was happening to me, would never have been so misguided and arrogant and self-absorbed. He'd known what Ianthe was from the moment he met her, and he'd understood what it was like to be a prisoner, and helpless, and to struggle, every day, with the horrors of both. I had loved the High Lord who had shown me the comforts and wonders of Prithian. I had loved the High Lord who let me have the time and food and safety to paint. Maybe a small part of me might always care for him, but Amarantha had broken us both, or broken me so that who he was and what I now was no longer fit. And I could let that go. I could accept that. Maybe it would be hard for a while, but maybe it'd get better. Rhys's feet were near silent, given away only by the slight groan of the stairs. I rose to open the door before he could knock, and found him standing there, tray in his hands. 2 stacks of covered dishes sat on it, along with 2 glasses and a bottle of wine, and... "Tell me that's stew I smell," I breathed in. Stew. Stepping aside and shutting the door while he sat the tray on the bed. Right. Not even room for a table up here. Rabbit stew if the cook's to be believed. I could have lived without hearing that, I said, and Rhys grinned. That smile tugged on something low in my gut, and I looked away, sitting down beside the food, careful not to jostle the tray. I opened the lid of the top dishes. 2 bowls of stew. What's the other one beneath? Meat pie. I didn't dare ask what kind of meat. I shot him a glare, but he was already edging around the bed to the armoire, his pack in hand. Go ahead and eat, he said. I'm changing first.
Eat your stew and meat pie while you watch him strip. Stew? Is that stew? This top is betraying me. Everything's betraying me. I'm so betrayed. Dinner and a show. Because of the music that's playing, can't y'all just picture Reese just like slowly just... I gotta take 1 second here. Cause like, I'm just like, ugh. Imagine that's how he changes always. That's actually something when I first started burlesque that like, they recommended to everybody that was starting out. They were like, when you get changed, practice. So sometimes if I'm just like having kind of a silly day, I still do it. It's fun. You should try it. I highly recommend it. You don't even necessarily need music. You can kind of sing to yourself. It's very fun. Because then you can feel like free to be silly and just do whatever, right? Because nobody's watching you. It's not for anyone. It's just for you. This is, I'm having a good time with this, honestly. But I'm more excited about the stew than anything else. Because I love stew. We talked about this the last time. Give me a potato right now. Okay. Indeed, he was soaked and had to be freezing and sore. You should have changed before going downstairs. I picked up the spoon and swirled the stew, sighing at the warm tendrils of steam that rose to kiss my chilled face. What'd that stew do? The rasp and slurp of wet clothes being shucked off filled the room. I tried not to think about that bare, golden chest, the tattoos, the hard muscles. You were the one training all day. Getting you a hot meal was the least I could do. Brought her food. I took a sip. Bland, but edible, and, most importantly, hot. I ate in silence, listening to the rustle of his clothes being donned, trying to think of ice baths, of infected wounds, of toe fungus. Anything but his naked body, so close, and the bed I was sitting on. I poured myself a glass of wine, then filled his. At last, Reese squeezed between the bed and jutting corner of the wall, his wings tucked in close. He wore loose, thin pants and a tight-fitting shirt of what looked to be softest cotton. How do you get it over the wings? I asked while he dug into his own stew. The back is made of slats that close with hidden buttons. But in normal circumstances, I just use magic to seal it shut. Yeah, because that would be so awkward. You could button up the back of your fucking shirt. Just don't wear a shirt, dude. But hey, that's me. It seems you have a great deal of magic constantly in use at once. A shrug. It helps me work off the strain of my power. The magic needs release, draining, or else it'll build up and drive me insane. Blue ball is magic.
That's why we call the Illyrian stones siphons. They help them channel the power, empty it when necessary.
Actually insane? I set aside the empty stew bowl and removed the lid from the meat pie.
Actually insane. Or so I was warned. I can feel it, though. The pull of it, if I go too long without releasing it.
That's horrible. Another shrug.
Everything has its cost, Feyre. If the price of being strong enough to shield my people is that I have to struggle with that same power, then I don't mind. Amryn taught me enough about controlling it. Enough that I owe a great deal to her, including the current shield around my city while we're here.
Everyone around him had some use, some mighty skill. And yet there I was, nothing more than a strange hybrid, more trouble than I was worth.
You're not, he said.
Don't read my thoughts.
I can't help with you sometimes. Shout down the bond. Besides, everything is usually written on your face, if you know where to look. Which made your performance today so much more impressive.
He set aside his stew just as I finished devouring my meat pie, and I slid back on the bed to the pillows, cupping my glass of wine between my chilled hands. I watched him eat while I drank. Did you think I would go with him? He paused mid-bite, then lowered his fork.
I heard every word between you. I knew you could take care of yourself, and yet...
He went back to his pie, swallowing a bite before continuing.
And yet I found myself deciding that if you took his hand, I would find a way to live with it. It would be your choice.
I sipped from my wine. And if he had grabbed me, there was nothing but uncompromising will in his eyes.
Then I would have torn apart the world to get you back.
A shiver went down my spine, and I couldn't look away from him. I would have fired at him, I breathed, if he had tried to hurt you. I hadn't even admitted that to myself. His eyes flickered.
I know.
He finished eating, placed the empty tray in the corner, and faced me on the bed, refilling my glass before tending to his. He was so tall he had to stoop to keep from hitting his head on the slanted ceiling.
One thought in exchange for another,
I said. No training involved, please. A chuckle rasped out of him, and he drained his glass, setting it on the tray. He watched me take a long drink from mine.
I'm thinking,
he said, following the flick of my tongue over my bottom lip.
I look at you and feel like I'm dying, like I can't breathe. I'm thinking that I want you so badly I can't concentrate half the time I'm around you. And this room is too small for me to properly bed you, especially with the wings.
My heart stumbled a beat. I didn't know what to do with my arms, my legs, my face. I gulped down the rest of my wine and discarded the glass beside the bed, stealing my spine as I said, I'm thinking that I can't stop thinking about you, and that it's been that way for a long while, even before I left the spring court. And maybe that makes me a traitorous, lying piece of trash, but
it doesn't,
he said, his face solemn. But it did. I'd wanted to see Rasan during those weeks between visits, and hadn't cared when Tamlin stopped visiting my bedroom. Tamlin had given up on me, but I'd also given up on him, and I was a lying piece of trash for it. I murmured, we should go to sleep. The patter of the rain was the only sound for a long moment before he said,
all right.
I crawled over the bed to the side, tucked almost against the slanted ceiling, and shimmied beneath the quilt. Cool, crisp sheets wrapped around me like an icy hand. My shiver was from something else entirely as the mattress shifted. The blanket moved, and then the 2 candles beside the bed went out. Darkness hit me at the same moment the warmth from his body did. It was an effort not to nudge toward it. Neither one of us moved, though. I stared into the dark, listening to that icy rain, trying to steal the warmth from him.
You're shivering so hard the bed is shaking, he said.
My hair is wet, I said. It wasn't a lie. Rhys was silent, then the mattress groaned, sinking directly behind me as his warmth poured over me.
No expectations, he said. His body heaved.
I scowled at the laughter in his voice. But his broad hands slid under and over me, one flattening against my stomach and tugging me against the hard warmth of him, the other sliding under my ribs and arms to band around my chest, pressing his front into me. He tangled his legs with mine, and then a heavier, warmer darkness settled over us, smelling of citrus and the sea. I lifted a hand toward that darkness, and met with a soft, silky material, his wing cocooning me and warming me. I traced my finger along it, and he shuddered, his arms tightening around me.
Your finger is very cold,
he gritted out, the words hot on my neck. What'd that wing do? Spoons! I tried not to smile even as I tilted my neck a bit more, hoping the heat of his breath might caress it again. I dragged my finger along his wing, the nail scraping gently against the smooth surface. Reese tensed, his hand splaying across my stomach.
You cruel, wicked thing,
He purred, his nose grazing the exposed bit of neck I'd arched beneath him.
Didn't anyone ever teach you manners?
I never knew Illyrians were such sensitive babies, I said, sliding another finger down the inside of his wing. Something hard pushed against my behind. Heat flooded me, and I went taut and loose all at once. I stroked his wing again, 2 fingers now, and he twitched against my backside in time with the caress. The fingers he spread over my stomach began to make idle, lazy strokes. He swirled one around my navel, and I inched imperceptibly closer, grinding up against him, arching a bit more to give the other hand access to my breasts.
Really, he murmured,
his lips hovering over my neck.
First you terrorized me with your cold hands, now you want... What is it you want, Feyre?
More, I almost begged him as his fingers traveled down the slope of my breasts, while his other hand continued its idle stroking along my stomach. Yeah, she loves people touching thoraxes. While his other hand continued its idle stroking along my stomach, my abdomen, slowly, so slowly, heading toward the low band of my pants and the building ache beneath it. Zahn's teeth scraped against my neck in a lazy caress.
What is it you want, Feyre?
He nipped at my earlobe. I cried out just a little, arching fully against him, as if I could get that hand to slip exactly to where I wanted it. I knew what he wanted me to say. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of it. Not yet. So I said, I want a distraction. It was breathless. I want fun. His body again tensed behind mine, and I wondered if he somehow didn't see it for the lie it was. If he thought that was all I indeed wanted. But his hands resumed their roaming.
Then allow me the pleasure of distracting you.
He slipped a hand beneath the top of my sweater, diving clean under my shirt, skin to skin. The calluses of his hands made me groan as they scraped the top of my breast and circled around my peaked nipple. Y'all knew it was coming. Y'all knew it was coming. That was a bad one. That was a bad one. Mimi heard me yell. Hi.
I love these.
He breathed onto my neck, his hand sliding to my other breast.
You have no idea how much I love these.
Yes, she's trying to help me out. Oh, the music stopped.
I groaned as he caressed a knuckle against my nipple.
Barely recovered. Nipple's my favorite.
I groaned as he caressed a knuckle against my nipple, and I bowed into the touch, silently begging him. He was hard as granite behind me, and I ground against him, eliciting a soft, wicked hiss from him. "Stop that," he snarled onto my skin. "You'll ruin my fun." I would do no such thing. I began twisting, reaching for him, needing to just feel him. But he clicked his tongue and pushed himself harder against me until there was no room for my hand to even slide in. "I want to touch you first," he said, his voice so guttural I barely recognized it. "Just let me touch you." He palmed my breast for emphasis.
Rock descriptions mixed in with our romance, yeah.
It was enough of a broken plea that I paused, yielding as his other hand again traced lazy lines on my stomach. "I can't breathe when I look at you. Let me touch you. Because I was jealous and pissed off. She's mine." I shut out the thoughts, the bits and pieces he'd given me. Reese slid his finger along the band of my pants again, a cat playing with its dinner. Again. "Please," I managed to say. He smiled against my neck. "There are those missing manners." His hand at last trailed beneath my pants. The first brush of him against me dragged a groan from deep in my throat. He snarled in satisfaction at the wetness he found waiting for him, and his thumb circled that spot at the apex of my thighs, teasing, brushing up against it, but never quite. His other hand gently squeezed my breast at the same moment his thumb pushed down exactly where I wanted. I bucked my hips, my head fully back against his shoulder now, panting as his thumb flicked. I cried out, and he laughed, low and soft. "Like that?" A moan was my only reply. More. His fingers slid down, slow and brazen, straight through the core of me and every point in my body, my mind, my soul. Narrowed to the feeling of his fingers poised like he had all the time in the world. "Bastard." "Please," I said again, and ground my ass against him for emphasis. He hissed at the contact and slid a finger inside me. He swore, "Vera," but I'd already started to move on him. He swore again in a long exhale. His lips pressed into my neck, kissing up toward my ear. I let out a moan so loud it drowned out the rain as he slid in a second finger, filling me so much I couldn't think around it. Couldn't breathe. "That's it," he murmured, his lips tracing my ear. I was sick of my neck and ear getting such attention. I twisted as much as I could and found him staring at me, at the hand down the front of my pants, watching me move on him. He was still staring at me when I captured his mouth with my own, biting on his lower lip. Reese groaned, plunging his fingers in deeper, harder. I didn't care. I didn't care one bit about what I was and who I was and where I'd been as I yielded fully to him.
Yeah.
Opening my mouth,
His tongue swept in, moving in a way that I knew exactly what he'd do if he got between my legs. His fingers plunged in and out, slow and hard, and my very existence narrowed to the feel of them, to the tightness in me ratcheting up with every deep stroke, every echoing thrust of his tongue in my mouth. You have no idea how much He cut himself off and groaned again. Farah. The sound of my name on his lips was my undoing. Release barreled down my spine, and I cried out, only to have his lips cover mine as if he could devour the sound. His tongue flicked the roof of my mouth while I shuddered around him. Clenching tight, he swore again, breathing hard, fingers stroking me through the last throes of it until I was limp and trembling in his arms. I couldn't breathe hard enough, fast enough. As Reese withdrew his fingers, pulling back so I could meet his stare, he said, I wanted to do that when I felt how drenched you were at the Court of Nightmares. I wanted to have you right there in the middle of everyone. Mostly I just wanted to do this. His eyes held mine as he brought those fingers to his mouth and sucked on them. On the taste of me. That's why I have to do this, because that's fucking awful and I hate it. I hate it. Ugh. 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 I was going to eat him alive. I slid a hand up to his chest to pin him down, but he gripped my wrist. Can you lick me? He said roughly. I want to be alone, far away from everyone. Because when you lick me, Farah, he said, pressing nipping kisses to my jaw, my neck, I'm going to let myself roar loud enough to bring down a mountain. It's already a gross little room and she's gonna smell like hella spit. Yeah, they're just gonna stink like each other, which actually is important later. So, because she's gotta track him via her own pussy smell. Which we never fully talked about, and I'm saving that for Wednesday. We're discussing it. I was instantly liquid again, and he laughed under his breath. And when I lick you, he said, sliding his arms around me and tucking me in tight to him, I want you splayed out on a table like my own personal feast. Why? That's fucking gross. My pussy is a dowsing rod, motherfucker! I whimpered. I've had a long, long time to think about how and where I want you. Reese set onto the skin of my neck, his fingers sliding under the band of my pants but stopping just beneath. They're home for the evening. Yeah, this is fucking steamy, right? I have no intention of doing it all in one night, or in a room where I can't even fuck you against the wall. I shuddered. He remained long and hard against me. I had to feel him, had to get that considerable length inside me. Sleep, he said. He might as well have commanded me to breathe underwater. But he began stroking my body again, not to arouse but to soothe. Long, luxurious strokes down my stomach, my sides. Sleep found me faster than I'd thought. And maybe it was the wine or the aftermath of the pleasure he'd wrung from me. But I didn't have a single nightmare. It's that moaning song again! Guys, okay. We're moving on to the last bit that is the steamy bit. Okay? So we're gonna take 1 minute before we get into this to prepare ourselves. Because chapter 55 is the hot chapter.
My fuck wings only permit me to bang against the walls, which we've already established have ears.
That inn has run white with cum! It has. That inn really got it. So this is just a, getting my tea kettle ready for some steep. So yeah, we're just gonna take 1 second here where I appeal to all of you. If you haven't followed, please follow. If you haven't subbed, please sub. And if you could find it in your heart to donate, we are currently fundraising right now for the Nashville trip. Especially now that I have planned skeleton brunch for everybody on the Sunday, and I'm working very hard with Jackie and Holden to plan a live Jackin' with the Holdies on the Friday night. I'm putting a lot of effort, time, and money into this trip, which I'm happy to do because I love all of you. But if you want to contribute to that and help me out a little bit, you can. There is an incentive. If you do $25 or more, I will sign a printed pinup photo of myself and mail it to you. You get to choose one of my photos and have it sent to you. So I have a couple of people who've already done it. No, but not my wallet yet, but I definitely want one of those photos. For real! So it's gonna be fun, and we're gonna miss you a lot that you can't be there. Said, I completely understand that some people can't afford to do it right now or at all, and that's totally cool. But if you're able to, it's mega appreciated, especially because I'm reading you all super sexy stuff too. But yeah, but follows and subs are always important, and also just being here and being my friends is always, I love it. So, okay. So yeah, the next one I think we're gonna get another slew of nipples and tastes and things. Yes, please, Sota, yes, please message me about the picture. We'll get that sorted out. Yeah, great. Awesome, okay. So I'm gonna pull up the chapter now. This one's not hard to find. Yes, the paint by numbers sex scene. Okay, so for those not in the know, she has just agreed to become his mate. So they're gonna be mates now. It's a whole thing. I am not taking a shot every time they say mate, because I think they say it like 1,000,000 times in this chapter, sometimes several times in a row. I refuse to do it for this. It was bad enough when they weren't fucking. But yeah, they've just agreed, and once they agree to be mates, there's like a frenzy that begins where they literally can't keep their hands off each other and they just have to fuck, like a lot. So there's a lot in chapter 55. So they're in this cute little cabin. They're doing like little cozy stuff. He just ate a stew, because again, stew. I love a stew. She gave him food, which was the thing. All good, so it's okay. You're missing this one. That's all. We'll see you all over there. I'll raid you. It's the fuck cabin, rocks for life. It's the fuck cabin. So here we go. He's eating stew right now. I watched him consume every spoonful, his eyes darting between where I stood and the soup. When he was done, he set down his spoon. Aren't you going to say anything? He said at last. I was going to tell you what I decided the moment I saw you on the threshold. Reese twisted in his seat toward me. And now,
aware of every breath, every movement. I sat in his lap. His hands gently braced my hips as I studied his face. And now I want you to know, Rasan, that I love you. I want you to know. His lips trembled, and I brushed away the tear that escaped down his cheek. I want you to know, I whispered, that I am broken and healing, that every piece of my heart belongs to you. And I am honored to be your mate. His arms wrapped around me, and he pressed his forehead to my shoulder, his body shaking. I stroked a hand through his silken hair. I love you, I said again. I hadn't dared say the words in my head, and I'd endure every second of it over again so I could find you. And if war comes, we'll face it together. I won't let them take you from me. Or take me from you. Or, either way. Yeah, and I won't let them take you from me either. Reese looked up, his face gleaming with tears. He went still as I leaned in, kissing away one tear, then the other, as he had once kissed away mine. When my lips were wet and salty with them, I pulled back far enough to see his eyes. You're mine, I breathed. His body shuddered with what might have been a sob, but his lips found my own. It was gentle, soft. The kiss he might have given me if we'd been granted time and peace to meet across our two separate worlds, to court each other. I slid my arms around his shoulders, opening my mouth to him, and his tongue slipped in, caressing my own. Ugh. Mate. My mate. See, they've said mate like 5 times. I would be dead right now. He hardened against me, and I groaned into his mouth. Sound snapped whatever leash he'd had on himself, and Rasan scooped me up in a smooth movement before laying me flat on the table, amongst and on top of all the paints. She had paint all over the table. He deepened the kiss, and I wrapped my legs around his back, hooking him closer. He tore his lips from my mouth to my neck, where he dragged his teeth and tongue down my skin, as his hands slid under my sweater and went up, up. Oh, whoops, oh no, thank you for the sub. Up to cut my breasts. I arched into the touch and lifted my arms as he peeled away my sweater in one easy motion. Reese pulled back to survey me, my body naked from the waist up. Paint soaked into my hair, my arms, but all I could think of was his mouth as it lowered to my breast and sucked, his tongue flicking against my nipple. Ah! I almost spilled the tequila. I don't know, y'all wanna fuck on paint? Apparently it's like a thing. But I'm also the kind of girl who'd be like, you got paint in my hair. Oh, like I'd hate that. Wet or dry paint? Wet paint. When you say dry paint, do you mean like those like pucks of tempura or like dry watercolor? Like, cause that would be uncomfortable. When I went to New York, God, that would be like 10 years ago now. Cause it was just before I met my partner, I remember. In the MoMA, there was a whole exhibit that was paintings that a guy had done by covering women in paint and then having them writhe around on the canvas. God damn it, Carl!
With lead-based paint chips in my vagina again. You can buy like a kit from the sex store and like a really big tarp, basically, where you make a painting by fucking on the paint. You can do it. It's like I said, it's like a thing. I don't one, I don't know if I want to do it, and two, I don't have any space where I could do it, so point's moot. Point is moot. Anyway, she naked on the table. I plunged my fingers into his hair, and he braced a hand beside my head, smack atop a palette of paint. He let out a low laugh, and I watched, breathless, as he took that hand and traced a circle around my breast, then lower until he painted a downward arrow beneath my belly button, which is dumb and childish and stupid, and I hate that.
Dude, lest you forget where this is going to end, he said.
I snarled at him, a silent order, and he laughed again, his mouth finding my other breast. He ground his hips against me, teasing me so horribly that I had to touch him, had to just feel more of him. How dare he dump up the bone? Oh. There was paint all over my hands, my arms, but I didn't care as I grabbed at his clothes. He shifted enough to let me remove them, weapons and leather thudding to the ground, revealing that beautiful tattooed body, the powerful muscles and wings now peeking above them. My mate. His mouth crashed into mine, his bare skin so warm against my own, and I gripped his face, smearing paint there, too, smearing it in his hair until great streaks of blue and red and green ran through it. His hands found my waist, and I bucked my hips off the table to help him remove my socks, my leggings. Reese pulled back again, and I let out a bark of protest that choked off into a gasp as he gripped my thighs, and yanked me to the edge of the table through paints and brushes and cups of water, hooked my legs over his shoulders to rest on either side of those beautiful wings, and knelt before me. Knelt on those stars and mountains inked on his knees. He would bow for no one. He bows to no one! And nothing. But his mate, his equal. The first lick of Rasan's tongue set me on fire. I want you splayed out on the table like my own personal feast. Remember? He growled his approval at my moan, my taste, and unleashed himself on me entirely. Bro! Does everyone here remember why I yell "I bow to no one" every time somebody says something like that? Because I realized I don't remember if everybody was here on the day when that happened, when I talked about that. Long story short, my dad essentially screamed that at me in a McDonald's once. He got very fired up. Yeah. And I was quite afraid and upset at the time, but now I just think it's hilarious. I bow to no one! Okay. Good times. Good times. I wish it was to do with the food. I really do. Yeah, I wish it was about the McDonald's. It had nothing to do with the McDonald's. It was politically motivated and not Not a fun moment. He thinks he's so great. He thinks he's so great. So, there's that. It's just, he's a scary man. He's a bad man and he's a scary man. That's all I'll say. A hand pinning my hips to the table, he worked me in great sweeping strokes. And when his tongue slid inside me, I reached up to grip the edge of the table, to grip the edge of the world that I was very near to falling off. I will say, this man has quite a long tongue if he can get it in. No? So good for him. He licked and kissed his way to the apex of my thighs, just as his fingers were placed where his mouth had been, pumping inside me as he sucked, his teeth scraping ever so slightly. I bowed off the table as my climax shattered through me, splintering my consciousness into a million pieces. He kept licking me, fingers still moving. "Reese," I rasped. Now. I wanted him now. It sounds like a description of eating watermelon. I don't know, maybe eating watermelon's good practice for this. I can't confirm or deny. Maybe try it out, see if it helps. But he remained kneeling, feasting on me. Ugh. That hand pinning me to the table. This fucking word. I went over the edge again, and only when I was trembling, half sobbing, limp with pleasure, did Reese rise from the floor. He looked me over, naked, covered in paint, his own face and body smeared with it, and gave me a slow, satisfied male smile. "You're mine," he snarled, and hefted me up into his arms. I wanted the wall. I wanted him to just take me against the wall, but he carried me into the room I'd been using and set me down on the bed with heartbreaking gentleness. Wholly naked, I watched as he unbuttoned his pants, and the considerable length of him sprang free. While these guys got huge dicks. Does anybody have a small dick? I'm just curious. Not that that's what I want, I'm just curious. Because everybody's dick is considerable. My mouth went dry at the sight of it. I wanted him. Wanted every glorious inch of him in me. Wanted to claw at him until our souls were forged together. He didn't say anything as he came over me. Haha, came. No, that's not what he meant. Wings tucked in tight. He'd never gone to bed with a female while his wings were out. But I was his mate. He would yield only to me. It's a glamour. Haha, Jade Egg, it's a glamour. Thank you. Yes, that could be true. All links should be considered. End shaft shaming. Take it to the streets. Yeah. If you got a little dick, you can't be a high lord. Give me them wings. Give 'em. Oof. He would yield only to me. And I wanted to touch him. I leaned up, reaching over his shoulder to caress the powerful curve of his wings. Gillette that did the short dick mix. Reese shuddered, and I watched his cock twitch. "Play later," he ground out. Indeed. His mouth found mine, the kiss open and deep, a clash of tongues and teeth. He lay me down on the pillows, and I locked my legs around his back, careful of the wings.
though I stopped caring as he nudged at my entrance and paused. "Play later," I snarled into his mouth. Reese laughed in a way that skittered along my bones and slid in. And in. And in. I could barely breathe, hardly think beyond where our bodies were joined. A clash of tongues and teeth in that Game of Thrones book. It's actually the 6th book in this series. It's rather than a clash, it's a court. He stilled inside me, letting me adjust. And I opened my eyes to find him staring down at me. "Say it again," he murmured. I knew what he meant. "You're mine," I breathed. Reese pulled out slightly and thrust back in slow, so tortuously slow. "You're mine," I gasped out. "Mufasa, Mufasa, Mufasa!" Ooh, say it again. "You're mine," I gasped out. Again, he pulled out, then thrust in. "You're mine!" Again, faster, deeper this time. I felt it then, the bond between us, like an unbreakable chain, like an undimmable ray of light. With each pounding stroke, the bond glowed clearer and brighter and stronger. "You're mine," I whispered, dragging my hands through his hair, down his back, across his wings. My friend through many dangers, my lover who had healed my broken and weary soul. That bond is called semenhood. Ah! My mate who had waited for me against all hope, despite all odds. I moved my hips in time with his. He kissed me over and over, and both of our faces turned damp. Every inch of me burned and tightened, and my control slipped entirely as he whispered, "I love you." Release tore through my body, and he pounded into me, hard and fast, drawing out my pleasure until I felt and saw and smelled that bond between us, until our scents merged. And I was his, and he was mine, and we were the beginning and middle and end. We were a song that had been sung from the very first ember of light in the world. Reese roared as he came, slamming into the hilt. Outside, the mountains trembled, the remaining snow rushing from them in a cascade of glittering white, only to be swallowed up by the waiting night below. Silence fell, interrupted only by our panting breaths. "Ooh, girl, I'm gonna make your face damp!" God, oh, don't say you love me, shit. I took his paint-smeared face between my own colorful hands and made him look at me. Guys, y'all know how paint works, right? You get enough colors all mixed up in one spot and it's all brown. Like, you're telling me they can still see all the different colors? No, it's just they're covered in brown paint at this point. They just look like they're covered in mud. Can he magically fix the yeast infection she's gonna get from the paint? That does seem dangerous, Yas Queen. I don't think it's every time. I think it's just because he said, "I'm gonna roar loud enough to bring down a mountain," and then so he does that. I think it's just that time. But good for him. His eyes were radiant, like the stars I'd painted once long ago, and I smiled at Reese as I let the mating bond shine clear and luminous between us. In these parts, we call him the Yeehaw Yeti. Okay. We're gonna keep going because even though that's fuck number 1, they fuck again in this chapter. I don't know how long we lay there,
lazily touching each other as if we might indeed have all the time in the world.
I think I fell in love with you,
Reese murmured, stroking a finger down my arm.
the moment I realized you were cleaving those bones to make a trap for the Midgard worm. Or maybe the moment you flipped me off for mocking you. It reminded me so much of Cassian. For the first time in decades, I wanted to laugh.
You fell in love with me, I said flatly, because I reminded you of your friend? He flicked my nose.
I fell in love with you, smartass, because you were one of us. Because you weren't afraid of me. And you decided to end your spectacular victory by throwing that piece of bone at Amarantha like a javelin.
Yeah, it's a little gay, but that's alright.
I felt Cassian's spirit beside me in that moment. I could have sworn I heard him say, "If you don't marry her, you stupid prick, I will."
I huffed a laugh, sliding my paint-covered hand over his tattooed chest. Paint. Right. We were both covered in it. So was the bed. Reese followed my eyes and gave me a grin that was positively wicked.
How convenient, the bathtub is large enough for two.
My blood heated, and I rose from the bed only to have him move faster, scooping me up in his arms. He was splattered with paint, his hair crusted with it. His poor, beautiful wings. Those were my handprints on them. Naked, he carried me into the bath, where the water was already running, the magic of this cabin acting on our behalf. He strode down the steps into the water, his hiss of pleasure a brush of air against my ear. And I might have moaned a little myself when the hot water hit me as he sat us both down in the tub. A basket of soaps and oils appeared along the stone rim, and I pushed off him to sink further beneath the surface. The steam wafted between us, and Reese picked up a bar of that pine tar smelling soap and handed it to me, then passed a wash rag.
Someone, it seems, got my wings dirty.
My face heated, but my gut tightened. Lyrian males and their wings, so sensitive. I twirled my finger to motion him to turn around. He obeyed, spreading those magnificent wings enough for me to find the paint stains. Carefully, so carefully, I soaped up the washcloth and began wiping the red and blue and purple away. The candlelight danced over his countless, faint scars, nearly invisible, save for harder bits of membrane. He shuddered with each pass, hands braced on the lip of the tub. I peeked over his shoulder to see the evidence of that sensitivity, and said, at least the rumors about wingspan correlating with the size of other parts were right. His back muscles tensed as he choked out a laugh.
Such a dirty, wicked mouth.
I thought of all the places I wanted to put that mouth and blushed a bit. I think I was falling in love with you for a while, I said, the words barely audible over the trickle of water as I washed his beautiful wings. But I knew on Starfall, or came close to knowing, and was so scared of it that I didn't want to look closer. I was a coward.
You had perfectly good reasons to avoid it.
No, I didn't. Maybe thanks to Tamlin, yes, but it had nothing to do with you, Reese. Nothing to do with you. I was never afraid of the consequences of being with you. Even if every assassin in the world hunts us, it's worth it. You are worth it. His head dipped a bit, and he said hoarsely, "Thank you." My heart broke for him then, for the years he'd spent thinking the opposite. I kissed his bare neck, and he reached back to drag a finger down my cheek. I finished the wings and gripped his shoulder to turn him to face me. What now? Wordlessly, he took the soap from my hands and turned me, rubbing down my back, scrubbing lightly with the cloth.
It's up to you, Reese said. We can go back to Valaris and have the bond verified by a priestess. No one like Ianthe, I promise. and be declared officially mated. We could have a small party to celebrate. Dinner with our cohorts. Unless you'd rather have a large party, though I think you and I are in agreement about our aversion for them.
His strong hands kneaded muscles that were tight and aching in my back, and I groaned.
We could also go before a priestess and be declared husband and wife, as well as mates, if you want a more human thing to call me. Mate.
What will you call me?
Mate, he said. Though also calling you my wife sounds mighty appealing, too.
His thumbs massaged the column of my spine.
Or if you want to wait, we can do none of those things. We're mated whether it's shouted across the world or not. There's no rush to decide.
I turned. I was asking about Jurian, the king, the queens, and the cauldron, but I'm glad to know I have so many options where our relationship stands. And that you'll do whatever I want. I must have you wrapped completely around my finger. His eyes danced with feline amusement.
Grow a beautiful thing.
I snorted, the idea that he found me beautiful at all.
You are, he said. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I thought that from the first moment I saw you on Colin High.
And it was stupid. Stupid for beauty to mean anything at all, but my eyes burned.
Which is good, he added, because you thought I was the most beautiful male you'd ever seen. So it makes us even.
I scowled, and he laughed, hands sliding to grip my waist and tug me to him. He sat down on the built-in bench of the tub, and I straddled him, idly stroking his muscled arms.
Tomorrow,
Reese said, features becoming grave.
We're leaving tomorrow for your family's estate. The Queen sent word. We'll return in 3 days.
I started. You're telling me this now?
I got sidetracked,
he said, his eyes twinkling. And the light in those eyes? The quiet joy? They knocked the breath from me. Future. We were going to have a future together. I would have a future. A life. Don't fuck in the paint water! Drain it and refill, please! Whoops, no, it's a magic tub, so we're just gonna politely assume that it's clean. Like it's circulating. Just gonna hope. His smile faded into something odd, something reverent, and I reached out to cup his face in my hands, to find my skin glowing. Faintly, as if some inner light shone beneath my skin, leaking out into the world. Warm and white light, like the sun, like a star. Those wonder-filled eyes met mine, and Reese ran a finger down my arm.
Well, at least now I can gloat that I literally make my mate glow with happiness.
I laughed, and the glow flared a little brighter. He leaned in, kissing me softly, and I melted for him, wrapping my arms around his neck. He was rock hard against me, pushing against where I sat poised right above him. All it would take would be one smooth motion, and he'd be inside me. So no, she's pregnant! They actually do talk about that later on. She's not currently, at least as far as we know. But Reese stood from the water, both of us dripping wet, and I hooked my legs around him, and he walked us back into the bedroom. The sheets had been changed by the domestic magic of the house, and they were warm and smooth against my naked body as he set me down and stared at me. For glowing! Shining. I was shining bright and pure as a star. Day court? I asked.
I don't care, he said roughly,
and removed the glamour from himself. It was a small magic. He'd once told me to keep the damper on who he was, what his power looked like. As the full majesty of him was unleashed, he filled the room, the world, my soul, with glittering ebony power. Stars and wind and shadows, peace and dreams and the honed edge of nightmares. Darkness rippled from him like tendrils of steam as he reached out a hand and laid it flat against the glowing skin of my stomach. The hand of night's blade, the light leaking through the wafting shadows, and I hoisted myself up on my elbows to kiss him. Smoke and mist and dew. I moaned at the taste of him. And he opened his mouth for me, letting me brush my tongue against his, scrape it against his teeth. Everything he was had been laid before me. One final question. I wanted it all. I gripped his shoulders, guiding him onto the bed, and he lay flat on his back. I saw the flash of protest as he at the pinned wings, but I crooned, "Delirium, baby," and ran my hands down his muscled abdomen. Farther. He stopped objecting. He was enormous in my hand, so hard, yet so silken that I just ran a finger down him in wonder. He hissed, cock twitching as I brushed my thumb over the tip. I smirked as I did it again. Romance novels always leave me feeling kind of listless and empty. It isn't fair that I'll never be begged so hard by a winged creature that I turn into a clover. It is true. It is patently unfair that we've all discussed this. We're all a community of monster fuckers on one level or another. This is where we are, and it just gotta have a vivid imagination. That's all you can do, you know? These men don't exist. They're not real, nor do the hot women who fuck them, and it's not fair. He reached for me, but I froze him with a look. My turn, I told him. The glow was inside of us all along. Reese gave me a lazy male smile before he settled back, tucking a hand behind his head, waiting. Why is his smile gendered? Cocky bastard. So I leaned down and put my mouth on him. He jerked at the contact with a barked shit and I laughed around him even as I took him deeper into my mouth. His hands were now fisted in the sheets, white-knuckled as I slid my tongue over him, grazing slightly with my teeth. His groan was fire to my blood. Honestly, I was surprised he waited the full minute before interrupting me. Pouncing was a better word for what Reese did. 1 second, he was in my mouth, my tongue flicking over the broad head of him. The next, his hands were on my waist and I was being flipped onto my front. He nudged my legs apart, his knees spreading me as he gripped my hips, tugging them up before he sheathed himself deep in me with a single stroke. I moaned into the pillow at every glorious inch of him, rising onto my forearms as my fingers grappled into the sheets. Reese pulled out and plunged back in, eternity exploding around me in that instant, and I thought I might break apart from not being able to get enough of him. Look at you, he murmured as he moved in me and kissed the length of my spine. I managed to rise up enough to see where we were joined, to see the sunlight shimmer off me against the rippling night of him, merging and blending, enriching, and the sight of it wrecked me so thoroughly that I climaxed with his name on my lips. Reese held me up against him, one hand cupping my breast as the other rolled and stroked the bundle of nerves between my legs, and I couldn't tell where one climax ended and the second began as he thrust in again and again,
his lips on my neck, on my ear. I could die from this, I decided. From wanting him, from the pleasure of being with him. He twisted us, pulling out only long enough to lie on his back and haul me over him. There was a glimmer in the darkness, a flash of lingering pain, a scar, and I understood why he wanted me like this. Wanted to end it like this, with me astride him. It broke my heart. I leaned forward to kiss him, softly, tenderly. As our mouths met, I slid onto him. The fit so much deeper as he murmured my name into my mouth. I kissed him again and rode him gently. Later, there would be other times to go hard and fast, but right now, I wouldn't think of why this position was one he wanted to end in, to have me banished, stained dark with the light. But I would glow. For him, I'd glow. For my own future, I'd glow. So I sat up, hands braced on his broad chest, and unleashed that light in me, letting it drive out the darkness of what had been done to him, to my mate, my friend. Reese barked my name, thrusting his hips up. Stars wheeled as he slammed deep. I think the light pouring out of me might have been starlight, or maybe my own vision fractured as release barreled into me again and Reese found his, gasping my name over and over as he spilled himself into me. Ew. That's gross. When we were done, I remained atop him, fingertips digging into his chest, and marveled at him, at us. He tugged on my wet hair.
We'll have to find a way to put a damper on that light.
I can keep the shadows hidden easily enough.
But you only lose control of those when you're pissed. Since I have every intention of making you as happy as a person can be, I have a feeling we'll need to learn to control that wondrous glow.
Always thinking, always calculating. Reese kissed the corner of my mouth.
You have no idea how many things I've thought up when it comes to you.
I remember mention of a wall. His thought was a sensual promise.
Next time, Feyre, I'll fuck you against the wall.
Hard enough to make the pictures fall off. Reese sparked a laugh.
Show me again what you can do with that wicked mouth.
I obliged him. Okay, I won't read this next part because it's just them eating breakfast and talking about how they want to fuck and how they could get pregnant. Yeah, that was it. That's the end. Oh, so did everybody have a good time? Did we enjoy the fuck book? Did we enjoy the fairy fuck book? Oh my god. Oof. Oof. Oh, that was very fun. So, just a reminder that Wednesday, we will have our talk back with Jackie, and then we will start the next book. So if you need to catch up before then, go back to the VODs. I'm currently working on re-uploading stuff that has since lapsed. Because I've got some people that I know who are like way behind, like they haven't watched or listened to the first one yet, even. So I'm gonna set you guys up. It's all on the YouTube too, but it's not well organized. I'm not good at it, so. But yeah. It's all there. So yeah, Wednesday we'll have our talk back with Jackie. Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST. And then we will read some of the next book, and then we're back to our regular schedule Sundays. So yeah. Hello, Mr. Tiny Corn Dog. How are you doing? So yeah, we are, we're done. So we're gonna go raid Sauté now. And then I will see you all in chat over on Jackie's stream later tonight, probably, where we're gonna bang daddies for Mother's Day. I guess is what we're doing. So yeah, let's set us up with our raid here. There we go.
All right, great. So yeah, it was so great hanging out with all you guys. I love y'all so much, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.